The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host, content creators, or the production company.
Welcome to the Foundations of Freedom with Jerome Huyler. A strong, vigorous economy runs on a division of labor. While some produce the goods, others provide the services we, the people, need and want. But behind everything we do, our work, our businesses, our daily lives, are the political decisions our leaders make in our name. Since we elect the men and women who write the laws that create the conditions in which we all prosper or perish, we all need to be fully informed political participants. The silent majority can no longer afford to remain silent. One of the most valuable services a free people require is the clarification of complex social, economic, and political ideas. Other media platforms offer biting commentary on the hot-button headlines of the day. This podcast service will explore the underlying causes of and the effective cures for what ails us. And this nation is ailing. Ultimately, to preserve the American dream, we will have to retrieve the principles that made that dream possible. But there are more pressing issues and concrete decisions to consider. So please stay tuned.
Welcome back to the Foundations of Freedom with Jerome Huyler and myself, Vlad Gutenmaker. Today's episode begins with a question most people never seriously ask. And if they do, they quickly dismiss it. The question is, what good is philosophy? Is it just abstract thinking, academic wordplay, or something far more powerful, something that quietly shapes the course of nations, cultures, and maybe even your own life? If you've ever wondered whether ideas really matter in the real world, this episode may change how you see everything. Jerry, I understand you want to begin this episode with a little story. Go ahead, spin your yarn.
Here goes. After attending her first 3 months at college, Jessica, a co-ed from Ohio, comes home for the holidays. Around the Thanksgiving table sit a number of accomplished family members. Jessica's mom is the CEO of a string of national retail outlets. Her dad is a state appellate court judge. Uncle Harry is a nutritionist with a substantial TV following. Cousin Dennis, the dentist, is a best-selling author, and her elder sister, Angela, does biomedical research at a local pharmaceutical laboratory. So, after dinner, Jessica suddenly rises and exclaims, "I finally know what I want to do with my life." Knowing she has long lacked a clear direction in life, the gathering suddenly grew real quiet in anticipation of the pending announcement. "I'm going to be a philosopher," she said. But that's not the end of the story. How do you think her family reacted to the startling news? No doubt the announcement came as a shock and probably a disappointment. Why was that? For everyone at the table, it was just common sense to say that the justification of any human endeavor is ultimately the contribution it makes to our lives, to our ability to deal successfully with life's challenges and improve the human condition. All such occupations help to satisfy our needs and wants. So naturally, the family wondered, What earthly good has philosophy ever done anyone? What useful purpose have the world's great philosophers served? What have any of them contributed to our well-being? Every productive occupation serves a useful purpose. Men and women are so engaged can fix what is broken, fly you to a far off destination, restore your health, teach you valuable lessons or skills, compose musical or theatrical works, arrange performances that provide life's precious moments, and do 1,000 other things that bring safety, comfort, and convenience to our lives. Doctors do that, so do architects, engineers, auto mechanics, even bus drivers serve a useful purpose. For the most part, academic philosophers haven't improved anyone's life or advanced human understanding in the least. They don't even tend to study the facts of reality. They mostly attend conferences and deliver papers critiquing what other philosophers have said. And the vast majority of modern philosophers begin their speculations with their intellectual feet planted firmly in midair, grounding their conclusions on a bed of floating, unconfirmed abstractions. Sad to say, no one knows less about their profession than do professional philosophers. Again, that is no reflection on philosophy per se. It's time to exchange bad philosophy with good philosophy. A little later, we will explore where, why, and how modern philosophy went wrong. The fact is that as Americans, we owe everything we have to specific advances that were made in the field of philosophy some time ago. Against popular opinion, early modern philosophy has indeed had a profound positive impact on American life. In fact, the contribution philosophy has had on American culture made all our other contributions possible. In the previous episode, we tackled the question, how limited was limited government meant to be? The pivotal ideas we presented in that discussion were first raised in the philosophical works of John Locke, specifically his second treatise of government. The documents that forged the foundations of American politics were expressly grounded in John Locke's monumental philosophy of nature, man, society, and government. With Locke, the Declaration of Independence declared all men are created equal and have certain inalienable rights, specifically life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Constitution's Bill of Rights identifies many more individual liberties, such as free speech, a free press, religious liberty, the right to keep and bear arms, protections for the accused, and innumerable other stipulations that for 250 years now have spared generations the despotic expansion of government power and tyrannical control over our lives. Think about it. All men are created equal. That was a stupendous development when you consider that for centuries, European civilization placed every human being and all lower forms of life in a hierarchical noose of strict ranks and stations. At the highest position stood the monarch, the king. Then came the archbishop and other high churchmen. Then came the nobility, who enjoyed privileges not available to the gentry, that is, the rising middle classes. And finally, last and lowest, the peasantry. that enjoyed no privileges at all. Every life form took up a position on this great chain of being, as it has been called. In fact, everything under heaven was ordered in a higher or lower station, including the stars and planets and the earth at the center of it all until Copernicus came along. It was John Locke's natural rights philosophy and the violation of those rights by a British king in Parliament that enticed the founders to declare their separation from Britain and begin the world anew. The principles affirmed in the Constitution's Bill of Rights were stern, lawful reminders designed to see that future generations, our generation, would not be deprived of their natural, inestimable rights. After all, the framers of the Constitution went to Philadelphia in the spring of 1787 to, quote, secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. That's from the preamble to the Constitution. It is true that present-day America is nothing like the nation that came into being in 1776 or 1789. But most of us, at least, are free to make our own way in the world and enjoy the fruit of our labor, at least 50% of the fruit that isn't taxed away. Let me say it once more. We living in the USA owe everything we have to the men who adopted John Locke's natural rights philosophy in 1776 and went on to establish what has appropriately been called the nation of the Enlightenment. What Jessica's family did not know is that in her first semester, the curious co-ed enrolled in a history course on America's founding era. The professor who gave the course, unlike most professors today, deeply admired the founding fathers and the country they brought into being. He began the course by saying, "A nation is as great as it is free," and that America, the freest nation, easily became the greatest and most prosperous nation to ever grace history's stage. At the same time, Jessica took a philosophy course by a professor who was influenced by the 20th century novelist and philosopher Ayn Rand. After just a few lectures, Jessica came to realize how closely the ideas of Ayn Rand mirrored and even improved upon the much earlier thought of John Locke. As the country's founders relied on Locke to construct the nation's political foundations, Jessica dared to imagine that our deeply troubled country today could call upon the wisdom of Ayn Rand to help resolutely revive America's all but lost greatness by reviving John Locke's philosophy. Americans could just free themselves from the shackles of big government socialism, sky-high taxes, business crippling regulatory policies, and every other impediment to free enterprise and economic growth. And national improvement could be revived as well. Jessica found her calling. She found her purpose, her life's work. She would fashion herself an intellectual. Many will scoff at the thought, but if properly conceived, it identifies a noble human calling. It is anyone who is committed to finding truth, clarity, and the principles that are compatible with living in reality and living well. The way politics is going, there is not a lot of time to turn things around and save ourselves from unspeakable future calamities. We can use 1,000 Jessicas about now.
Wow, Jerry, that was deep. Before we end, let's play a game called Spot the Philosophy. Before we wrap up, I'll throw out a few everyday beliefs or statements, and let's see if people can spot the philosophy behind them. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea.
All right, here we go. Number one, see if you can spot the philosophy. People should be free to live their lives however they choose, as long as they don't harm others. What's the philosophy behind that?
That is the essential principle behind the philosophy of natural rights. To go a step further, it says that everyone has a right to live and let live, to live their lives as best they can, as they see fit, and to allow everyone else to live the same way, so that, as Ayn Rand put it in her novel Atlas Shrugged, that her hero of the novel, John Galt, says, I have sworn upon my life and everything I love that I will never live for the sake of another, nor ask another to live for my sake. So it is a philosophy of live and let live. We can do what we please until we step on someone else's toes, which is precisely what we cannot do. And that's what it means to possess natural rights: the right to life, liberty, the right to gain, keep, use, trade, or otherwise bestow our freely acquired possessions.
All right, here comes question number two. Ready?
Ready.
Success comes from individual effort, not government control.
That is true. Every achievement has originally been the achievement of individuals in every field you can think of, in architecture, in art, in invention. The people who have brought civilization forward and improved the quality of our lives are the people who invent, who innovate, the individuals who create something that no one else ever thought of, and create thousands of jobs for people who have similar interests. Government only taxes, it takes away, it regulates, it inhibits, it prohibits, it doesn't advance society. The only exception to that is, since we all need the right to gain, keep, use, trade, or otherwise dispose of our freely acquired possessions, we do need government to protect us in the enjoyment of those activities of gaining, keeping, using, trading, or otherwise disposing of the material things that we create or we simply acquire. Government, as I've said last time, government must be a strong protector. When it becomes a provider, it also becomes a taker, because government cannot provide anything without first depriving citizens of what is theirs.
All right, Jerry, ready for the last question?
Already.
All right, here we go. Truth is relative. What's true for you may not be true for me.
That is one of the most popular misconceptions that I have found with talking to people, talking to thousands of people across the decades. People think that conditions are different. We're not living in a primitive pioneer society. This is advanced civilization. So what's true in primitive times cannot possibly be true today. That is a myth. That is scandalously untrue. There are objective truths good for all times and all places. It is true, for example, that we need free speech and free expression and a free press and religious liberty if we are to live good, prosperous, and free lives. That is not true in 1700, but not true in 1900, not true in 2026. That is true for all times and places. Our nature does not change from generation to generation. The technologies we discover and use, the comforts and conveniences we acquire, they change, but it's the same underlying conditions that make prosperity possible, that make invention and innovation and production and creativity possible. And they all require liberty, so that liberty is a universal, never ending value for any society that wishes to prosper, flourish, and thrive.
Wow, Jerry, that was great. I love that segment. So here's the point for everyone listening. You may think that you don't care about philosophy, but philosophy is already shaping how you think, how you vote, if you vote, how you act, for sure, and definitely how you live. The only question is, are you choosing your philosophy or absorbing it by default?
That is very true, Vlad, very true. And Jessica's story is not unusual. It is simply rare that someone as young as her recognizes what she recognizes so early in her life because of the good professors she was fortunate enough to study with. Philosophy is not an academic luxury. It is the foundation upon which every belief, every system, every political country, and every society rests. The foundation upon which all societies rest, for better or worse. If the philosophy is sound, human life flourishes. If it is corrupt or confused or worthless, decline is inevitable. Social decline is inevitable. History moves slowly and it might take a long time, but the end is always bad. The future will not be decided by chance, certainly not by going to the polls and voting for your run of the mill politician. It will be decided by the ideas we hold, the ideas we accept, the principles we accept or reject. And that is why philosophy matters. Now, next time, we're going to say exactly what philosophy is, and you'll have a much deeper understanding of what it takes to develop a full, comprehensive philosophy. I hope you all will stay tuned to episode 21.
If this episode got you thinking, even a little bit differently, then it's already done its job. Share this episode with someone who still thinks philosophy is useless. I'm sure that won't be too hard to find because the truth is, nothing shapes the world more than ideas. Thanks for listening to the Foundations of Freedom. Jerry. Till next time.
Vlad, thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.